Boxing Truth here. Let's bang out a Miguel Cotto video. His farewell fight's upon us. Tomorrow night, Madison Square Garden. He faces off against Saddam Ali, live on HBO. Miguel Cotto, his career is an interesting one in terms of what he accomplished, how he's really among the place of all Puerto Rican great fighters, how his career, will you rank him as among the greats, especially among Puerto Rican fighters. The opposition he fought didn't always win, always fought with his heart out, gave great memories, and fought the guys when they were at their absolute peak. When it comes to that, most of the guys that he fought, especially the guys that mattered, like Antonio Margarito, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather still had some physicality left when they fought. When it comes to that, you got to give props to Cotto. He's not known for ducking and dodging. Took the fight with Maravilla when everybody counted him out. Even I did. He made me look like a damn fool in that fight. Thought Maravilla would trash him. Make easy work of him. Boy, was I wrong. He proved me wrong on that night. But there's been other nights where you have to question Miguel Cotto's legacy. There's been a couple of those nights. You saw the limitations of Cotto very early in his career. You saw that he's a very formidable, very good fighter, but nowhere near as great as Felix Trinidad. Trinidad to me is the GOAT of Puerto Rican boxing. Could be biased. You know, I didn't follow Rafael Gomez's career. I didn't watch all of Benitez's fights. Those guys were before my time. But to me, no one compares to Tito Trinidad when it comes to all-time Puerto Rican great fighters. Trinidad had it all. That dude has so much style, swag, charisma, personality, and a great boxing style. Trinidad was a star, man. When he entered the room, he lit it up. His ring entrances was just as exciting as his fights. I was always nervous as hell when I was watching a Trinidad fight. I'll never forget his career. That was a career filled with great memories. Became an A-side, pay-per-view A-side. Laid the groundwork that is possible for a Puerto Rican fighter to produce a big market on pay-per-view in the US. He laid the groundwork for Miguel Cotto. Of course, Cotto is not very pleased with Trinidad Sr.'s comments, but Sr.'s comments does make sense. I mean, who was really doing it big out of Puerto Rico before Miguel Cotto, before Felix Trinidad? Who was producing that type of attention, that type of numbers that Trinidad was producing in his biggest fights? And he came up through an era where he didn't have many pay-per-view stars around his weight division. There was only one besides himself, and that was Oscar De La Hoya. And maybe Shane Mosley. Fortunately, that fight never occurred. One of the fights that I wish that would have happened. But Cotto grew up in an era where he had multiple pay-per-view stars around his division. Canelo, Mayweather, and Pacquiao. And didn't defeat any of them. Going back to what I was saying, Cotto had a couple of questionable nights. A few nights where you can question his legacy, you can question how really good he is. Is he really a great A-level fighter? Didn't see that in the Love Morendo fight. Saw the limitations, saw the weaknesses in that fight. Didn't see it in the Chop Chop Corley fight. If it wasn't in PR, that fight would have been very interesting. Cotto got the benefit of a hometown stoppage. Cotto was still looking strong in that fight when Cotto almost got his ass knocked out by a lightweight. Very embarrassing if that would have occurred. It's very possible Cotto lost to Joshua Clottey. Had a life and death struggle with Ricardo Torres. Got schooled. Outboxed by Austin Trout. So there's many nights where Cotto, you question his greatness, how great he is. Getting submitted by Margarito. People want to say he had loaded hand wraps. I got no evidence, man. No evidence whatsoever that Margarito had tainted hand wraps for that fight. So you really can't say that, can you? Maybe Margarito was just coming into his own that night. He was in his absolute prime. Gave everything he had that night. It was never the same after that fight. It was a grueling fight for both guys. What's really telling is that neither guy's career was ever the same. Miguel was never the same after that fight. I was a big fan of Miguel Cotto in the early days. Was telling all my boxing peeps like, yo, man, this cat is the next Trinidad. He's the next great Puerto Rican fighter. And he made me look good in the first 7 years of his career when he was, he had the questionable stoppage with Corley, the life and death struggle with Love Morendo. But he was looking pretty damn good in his other fights. Trashing Judah. Getting the better of Shane Mosley. Competitive fight, though. Beating the crap out of Malignaggi, an undefeated Malignaggi. Knocking out Carlos Quintana, his countryman. Destroying prime Randall Bailey. Pure puncher. He's had some good nights, some good wins. But he was never as great as Felix Trinidad. Was never beloved as Felix Trinidad. But I give Miguel props for what he's accomplished in his career. He is a 4-division champion. The only 4-division champion out of Puerto Rico. He has that on Trinidad. But there was more belts by the time, more recognized belts by the time Tito retired. There was an extra belt that was recognized by the time Cotto's career was starting to progress, which was the WBO. And also it was tougher to make unification bouts in Trinidad's era. I would say so, compared to Cotto's era. Cotto is a Hall of Famer. I give him that. Since there's, lesser fighters that are in there. He's earned his stripes. Was willing to go out on his shield for this fight. Called out Gennady Golovkin. The fight wasn't available. Was willing to fight any young lion on the PBC side. They all turned it down. And so now he's getting a farewell fight where he's heavily favored to beat Saddam Ali. He's fighting a different generation fighter, which makes it a little dangerous. Wasn't really all that impressed with Cotto's last fight against Kamagai. I gotta watch it again, but from what I saw, I wasn't really that impressed. So is Saddam Ali a live dog? Probably not. He's in his prime, but doesn't punch very hard. Doesn't have that toughness. Doesn't have an established defense. Hasn't shown the strongest whiskers. Hasn't shown the strongest conditioning. So maybe he's just an opponent on December 2nd, tomorrow night, for Cotto to look good. But maybe he could make it interesting for a while. We'll see. Against an Asian Cotto. Cotto was great for boxing. Produced a lot of great memories. And I'm grateful for what he did for Canelo. He got Canelo to get over the hump. He got Canelo to have confidence in himself that he can beat an elite fighter. Cotto passed his torch to Canelo. His powers passed along to Nello. And now Nello is possibly the best fighter in the world. At least top 2, top 3. So I'm thankful for Miguel Cotto for fighting a young lion like that, and for creating another elite superstar fighter. He's going out on his terms. We'll see if he really stays retired. It's always tough to stay away, considering the name recognition he has, the type of paydays he can produce with another big name in the sport. But this could be it. And if this is it, I say farewell to Miguel Cotto. Wish you well in retirement. But you weren't as great as Tito Trinidad. Never was, never will be. And he would have trashed you. Prime for prime. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.